Whoa, that was unexpected. Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. Thank you all for your prompt attention following lunch. My name is Lindsay. I get the honor of wrangling our post-lunch presenters. So I know it's always hard to present after lunch, so I appreciate everybody giving our presenters their full attention. And our first presentation, and just for those of you who are maybe tracking along with the schedule, we are one presentation behind, so just in case you're actually tracking. But Jenny Robinet is going to be presenting for us, and we're excited to have her, and we're going to just keep rolling along from there. So with all ado, Jenny.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I thought I'd be saying good morning, but it's afternoon. Totally fine. Enjoy your lunch. It was delicious. Welcome back. So I just want to introduce myself really briefly. My name is Jenny Robinet in French, and I am a project manager at Pacific Advanced Civil Engineering, PACE. And I'll be talking today about a project that is near to my heart, and also just a very cool feature that we have that we've transitioned to a digital platform. So without further ado, I'll go ahead. So I guess just a brief background. We have a project in Southern Orange County on the San Juan Creek River, and it's been going now for 15 plus years, and is an annual monitoring of the creek, a large portion of the natural creek system. So not just San Juan Creek, but also tributaries to the creek. And that is part of a mitigation measure with the EIR document for development that's kind of hugging the creek. It's right around the creek. And so as part of that, we do an annual monitoring, and essentially we're making sure that there are no adverse impacts to the creek system from the development. And now with 15 plus years of data, we're really able to see those trends and what's happening and natural, not natural, what's occurring. And so each of these points here are a part of that mitigation measure, and so we collect data for each of these points. So we're collecting observations, images, GPS points for various sites along the creek, and we're also taking or incorporating survey data for cross sections that have been continuously and annually surveyed each year. And we have a couple other parts to the mitigation measure that are related to periodic aerial photography and topography, and so we're looking at a whole complete picture. So you can imagine it's a lot of data. 15 plus years, we've got 10 plus miles that we're monitoring. We have over 50 sites that we're viewing, many of those still active, and we're taking a look at flow pass down from the outfalls, making sure those are all in tech and nothing, no erosion, sedimentation, or just what's happening out there. And like I mentioned, the cross sections, we have 20 of those now. And then we also install erosion pins, which are essentially steel rebar placed laterally into the creek bank. And we measure those each year for the lateral migration of the bank. A lot of data. Really quick, this is a typical kind of field site. And our field team will head out there, and they will establish the bank laterally, and we'll see the progression of that each year. They'll collect images and the pin data to recognize what those impacts are from, what the causes are, and if there's anything that we should be doing about it. And so this is all into a geomorphic assessment of the creek. And so we prepare a report where we assess that data, use the many years of data, and we'll take a look at the severity of the sites. I call them monitoring sites, but they're really locations that there have previously been erosion potential. And so we're taking a look at that again, seeing if there's still erosion, seeing if the sedimentation of the creek has increased, deposition, and it's It's in an effort to preserve the natural beauty and like fluvial geomorphology of the creek. And as part of this, we will then go to our client and tell them, hey, this is something that we notice, and potentially there's some adaptive management that's needed, which could be could be something like a bank protection measure in place, like riprap, or it could also be further monitoring, or just continuing to, monitor those specific areas that we see as critical. So the data and the assessment, all of that gets compiled into a report that we then submit to the county, the reviewing agency. And you can imagine that over the years, it's increased exponentially. We started with 100 pages in maybe 2011, and now it's over 600 pages, which every year, it's a significant work effort just putting together the report, the county also reviewing it. It's a lot. And last year, or I guess it would be 2 years ago, the county made a suggestion to us and said, hey, have you thought of a digital platform for this? And we were like, that's brilliant. Let's do it. And so we've worked with our GIS team to put all of this online. And so it's all within the ArcGIS platform. We have our editing licenses, and then they have a reviewing license. And so building out, we call it a dashboard, but it's building out different features through ArcGIS and being able to present all of that data and present those assessments. And so, you've got the ability to view it on the phone, online, and there's a lot of interactiveness to it. And one thing that we've really been excited about is using field maps. We had been using it, but not to the full extent, and now we are, and it's been great to see the data come in real time. We can see, if there's anything additional that we need to collect out there. We can take those images and have them right there. We see, as the field team is coming in with the information, we head out there, we can actually be able to, we see the efficiency of the collection method of the field maps. And what's great also is, you can input the observations right there in their phone. The connectivity is really important to us too. So this is a look at the dashboard. We've got 3 parts to it. The top kind of row, that's the data, the results that we have collected. And when you have a reviewer who's familiar with the process, familiar with what we're doing, they can just go straight to those icons, click on the icon, and they get to see on a map. A map feature comes up, and they can interactively react or check around and see what they want to see and review and take a look at each of the sites. So that top row is really the crucial information from what we've collected. And then there's the monitoring statistics. Those are quick numbers. Say you just want to know where we're at, where the miles that we are monitoring along the creeks, what the rainfall was this year, if we've passed a certain threshold that triggers other mitigation measures, how many pins we've collected, where they are located. So those are the quick statistics. And then on the far right, there's the story maps. And so we've built out 10 story maps that are essentially chapters of the old report. And so that has a lot of the additional information, the background, the text, and then it includes the maps that are in the data and the results embedded within those story maps. And so this is just clicking on one of those icons. You can see it brings up a map. The sidebar has all the sites. We have a code of coloring symbology related to the severity of the erosion that we see. And so you're able to click on one of those sites, and it pulls up the right side with all the information. And our GIS team, I can brag about them because they're not here, but they've been amazing. They've really they put so much into this. It took 4 months to really bring all of this online, and they've been able to put in like logical expressions for the symbology and everything related, and it's been impressive. With the story maps, you can see there, we have the different sections of the report, and that's really to just help to provide all the information while also being able to have the maps separately so for quick access and maneuverability. You can imagine with the massive paper report, PDF report, there's different sections that connect, but you're jumping back and forth, and it can be a headache. So here you can jump to the parts that you want to review really easily, and it's all connected. And so this is one of those story maps. It's an executive summary. So you can see at the top, there's the different headings. Click on the headings, it'll take you to the different part of the story map. And the different chapter headings are for, review, ease. And I would say it's been, there's been a learning curve. As we were trying to figure out, we know that there will be a review of this. How do we incorporate different parts of a report, but on a digital platform where it's, it could, all of a sudden just kind of explode on you. So just being able to provide those story maps and the review for review and for us, we can see all of the digital data right here in one spot and be able to see the trends and the comparisons, and that's helped with our assessment. So the advantage is it's been more efficient. We've seen that as we've been learning through it, but it's definitely been a positive for us. The real time, I mentioned that. We don't have to, they're out there, they're at the site, we can see it come in, we take that information and we immediately are able to say, hey, we need these additional points or we need something else, or we're able to get that. And the process, we're seeing that as well. We've gotten good feedback from the reviewer, and just saying that it's been a great tool to use. And we have this template for future years. We're going to be using it again this year, and we're excited to do that. Excited to continue this forward. So with that, we'll take any questions.
Jenny, is this information available to the public?
So it is not available to the public. It is through the ArcGIS website in the through the license that we have from the client. And so the client has the platform. We have licenses to edit, and then the county has the license to review.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
As someone at the county who reviews it, I will echo it is wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is really good, and it's really helped and made it much quicker and more effective to review. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I came up with a question. So it's an amazing amount of data, and what are you going to do with it? Is there thought of using, you have all this hydrologic and erosion information, which people don't usually have before the fact. Is there any designs on using that to make some predictions for the future?
That's a great question. We haven't really thought about it yet, but I think that could be something for the future and a potential use. Right now, it is, I believe it's publicly available the county has all the reports that we have. And so there's a lot of years of data, and that could be a use for them for sure. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And with that, we're going to hand it over to our next speaker, Lauren Berg, and her partner, who I will let her introduce because it's not written down. Thank you so much.
It's showing it in preview. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lauren Berg. I am the Curator of Education at the Santa Ana Zoo and Santiago Creek Eco Center. And my amazing coworker is Amber Suto, one of my fabulous education specialists. And yes, we did say zoo. And no, we did not bring any animals with us.
Our apologies.
I'm sorry. But what we're actually here to share today is a little update. Our director, Ethan Fisher, was here last year and did kind of a preview on the Santiago Creek Eco Center, and it's cruising right along, and we're so excited to share a whole bunch of updates with you. So if you're not familiar, we are from the city of Santa Ana. Sorry for the winds, they're not our fault. We get a lot of them too. But we are actually focusing on this teeny tiny little nature center that was kind of forgotten when the world shut down during the pandemic. The center was originally built in 2008. It is a highly urbanized, incredibly diverse area. The population density is one of the highest in the state. And this is the only little natural strip, this only little natural oasis in the middle of this really dense city. So it was initially opened and built as part of the City of Santa Ana Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Agency, which the zoo is a part of. And we got a phone call a couple months into said event and said, hey, there's these 2 snakes that we kind of forgot about. So we got an eco center and the 2 snakes. They're doing great. So, yeah, it's a 34-acre park. We are just a little nature center. I want to say it's like 2,000 square feet-ish, and we're bringing it back to life.
So while we're focusing on reactivating our space, a lot of our energy thus far has been focused on the building of the Nature Center itself and making that a welcoming place for our community and our guests. So to that end, we're actually open 4 days a week now, which is much better than the 0 it's been the last 3 years, including weekends, which is when we see the majority of our guests. And for those of you who were here last year, you might recall we are actually gutting and redesigning all the exhibits in that space. We're very excited to announce that those new exhibits are in fabrication and hopefully to be installed soon. Looking outward to the larger grounds in the park itself, all of our plants and grounds are maintained as part of the City Public Works. We are partnering with them in future projects such as the restoration of our local vernal pool. Also in our park, we have 2 freshwater wells that help give our city some nice clean drinking water, and we want it to be even cleaner. So the Orange County Water District is actually in the process of installing 2 PFAS treatment centers.
So we know that access to natural spaces is a huge issue in Santa Ana. It is in so many of our areas throughout the Inland Empire and our watershed. And the city only currently has about 1.1 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. So the state recommends 3. So over half of the residential areas in the city are considered high need because they are below the poverty level, thus creating another barrier to access to natural spaces. So we're really, really focusing all of our efforts on just bringing the community back to nature. I'm sure many, if not all of us in this room, are in this industry because we had one significant event outside or with a natural element where we were like, that. I'm into frogs, I'm into fish, I'm into why the sky is blue. And that is why we're in this industry. So, super, super excited. We're also aware and very, very thankful for the knowledge sharing of our indigenous communities. We've been lucky to be working very closely with some Tongva elders, and we've actually fully incorporated Tongva as well as Nahuatl into all of our signage throughout the redesign process, and we're in the process of incorporating that even further into our programs. And we're always looking to build more relationships in order to create better programs for our community.
So obviously, we don't have the time today, unfortunately, to share all of our redesigned exhibits with you, so we're just going to give you a sneak peek of a couple of them that you might find exciting. Firstly, when you walk right into our building, there was a reception desk there. We thought that was kind of boring. We've knocked it out. We are installing a brand new paludarium, and this habitat is going to replicate some of the environments you'd find in our creek or throughout the rest of the watershed as well. We're especially excited for this opportunity to showcase native species. We're still figuring out the details on which species exactly, but some possibilities would include western pond turtles, the arroyo chub, the Santa Ana sucker, which I know many of you here find very near and dear to your hearts. And for many members of our community, they have never had the opportunity to see these animals that you know so well in real life. They've never seen one alive. And many of them don't even know that these are animals that exist, that belong as part of their watershed and part of their community. So we're really excited about the opportunity to give them the chance to see them, to become familiar with them, start building those connections with our wild neighbors, and then eventually foster real care and real opportunities for further conservation action.
And we all love maps, so yes, there is a giant map in the middle of the Eco Center, but we're taking it a step further. We're making it interactive. So our guests will be able to push a button and see how our watershed has changed over the course of history, through human impact, through natural events, and then what we're hoping for in the future. Adjacent to this big map where guests will be able to kind of play around with the watershed, if you will, there's a great big reflection wall that we're calling Our Creek, Our Community. And we're really taking our guests through the changes of the watershed, and particularly Santiago Creek, over the course of history, and inviting them to contribute their own stories as those form through their explorations at our nature center.
And everything that we go through in our exhibits will be reinforced by our programming. The community has been very supportive and very excited about the fact that we now have regular programs again. It's not just an empty building that nobody's doing anything with, yay. So right now we have 3 programs that run twice a month. We do Creekside Story Time for the littles, art workshops on weekends, as well as a nature journaling club on weekends. All of these are opportunities for us to really start connecting again with our community, with our neighbors who don't really know us yet because we're still new here, and to get them reconnected with nature. We're also very interested in joining up with some of the larger programs throughout our area, our region, our state, and the country. So this last September was our first participation in California Coastal Cleanup Day. If you're not familiar with that one, it is the largest volunteer event in the state, and it is a great opportunity for us to get our community outside, have them reminded that it's not just you right here in Santa Ana. We are a part of this larger watershed, and the actions that you do take here, they go down the line, they matter. We are also going to be very, very involved with community science. This February will be our second time working on the Great Backyard Bird Count, and this spring we will be bringing the City Nature Challenge to Orange County. Both of those are long-running, internationally renowned community science programs, and I think this is really where we fulfill the zoo's mission of empowering our community to save wild spaces and wildlife. Because this is the spot where we get data that goes back to you, that the researchers can use, the land managers can use, and is actually going to make a difference out there in the world.
So this is our ask to you. Shout out to USGS. Hi, friends. The Santa Ana Zoo is actually a site for a Western Ecological Research Center, so they're good friends. We know lots about the adorable frogs, and we're excited to hear more about them. Also, a big thank you to the Sacred Path Indigenous Wellness Center and the City of Santa Ana Parks and Recreation, as well as the Irvine Ranch Conservancy. We are looking for more partners. There's opportunities for financial sponsorship, there's opportunities for resource sharing, and of course, community knowledge sharing. So if any of you are interested in building your skills talking to little kids that just think that the frog is adorable and are excited that you do anything with it, please call us. If anyone has any ideas for sponsorship or funding opportunities, we're always happy to be one of those partners that's going in on a grant together or something like that. So yeah, we're looking for all of those great partnership opportunities. And here is our contact information. Yes, you can feel free to visit us, but also just shoot us an email, give us a call. We're always happy to drag people outside and continue to build the connection between our community and nature.
Thank you.
And we can take a couple questions. Great. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I think one of the exciting things about all these talks is how different they are and yet how interrelated they are. So with that, I have the opportunity to introduce Mikhail Romich, who's going to talk to us about gnatcatchers and cowbirds, and I'm very excited to hear about these results. So moving on.
Hello, everybody. Usually I'm up here talking about San Bernardino kangaroos, but this year I decided to talk a little about California gnatcatchers, probably my second favorite species in the Santa Ana River Wash. This work pretty much revolves around monitoring of the Wash HCP, Upper Santa River Wash Habitat Conservation Plan, conservation lands, also the Mill Creek Basins, and the Judson Brown Preserve, which we've monitored for a few years. So give you a little bit about that today. Just to touch on the background of the gnatcatchers, they're a federally threatened and state-sensitive species. They were actually once thought to be extirpated from San Bernardino County. Recently, we found them breeding in a variety of habitats in the Santa River Wash, where they seem to prefer brittle-bush for nesting. Both the male and female incubate the eggs, which is helpful for finding the nests. And they're also known to be a host of the brown-headed cowbird. Actually, San Bernardino County Museum egg records date back to 1933. So we know they were present and being parasitized back then. These are the three main study areas. The pink is the Santa Ana River Wash, HCP conservation lands. The turquoise is the Mill Creek Basins, and the yellow is the Judson Brown Preserve. The surveys have been done for some of the areas in 2019, but more regularly between 2021 and 2024. Usually April and June, but we've also done sort of more exploratory studies in July and August. Basic methods are just traversing the habitat, playing vocalizations and recording responses and activities of the birds, as well as finding nests and passively monitoring them from a distance. So since about June, well, not since about, but as of June 2024, we received special approval through the Wash HCP to more closely monitor the gnatcatcher nests, and that was actually a really quick response, adaptive management response to the observation of parasitism at a number of the nests. This allowed for manipulations if the cowbirds were seen in the nest. Implemented a basic nest monitoring protocol every 3 to 4 days, viewing the contents of the nest, or at least every week or so. And a basic measure of success was if the nest fledged a California gnatcatcher. So here's some positive results here between 2019 and 2024. You can see that there's been good positive growth at all the study areas. There's also been likely range extension, or at least reoccupation of areas upstream in Mill Creek all the way to Highway 38, and then downstream to probably Alabama Street, but that's where our monitoring area kind of stops. We've also seen pretty good evidence of reoccupation of foothill areas north of Mill Creek, also known to some as the Sunrise property, where between 2014, when protocol surveys found no birds, and in 2024 where there were a number of birds, although they weren't quantified. So this is a little comparison between 2023 and 2024. Some dramatic changes occurred between these 2 years, particularly in the nest success of California gnatcatchers, and which obviously lowered. That's the blue area, and also the number of parasitized nests greatly increased, which is the orange. For the Wash HCP survey area, of 15 nests that were found later in the season in about early June to July, 12 of those were parasitized by the brown-headed cowbird. So kind of in the Santa River Wash anyway, 2024 sort of seemed like the year of the brown-headed cowbird. This is kind of a fun photo of a male gnatcatcher chasing away a female brown-headed cowbird while a male brown-headed cowbird sits in the tree. And ironically enough, this male gnatcatcher was tending a brown-headed cowbird fledgling. So I'll give you a little information about the brown-headed cowbird in case you don't know. There are obligate brood parasites that lay their eggs in the nests of other species and rely on them to raise the young, raise the cowbirds. There's a number of advantages that cowbirds have. That includes they time their nest or their lane to sync with the gnatcatcher. They have a shorter incubation period, which means the eggs hatch before the host species. And also the chicks are very much larger, stronger, they beg louder for food, and develop faster than the host young do. So it's not too surprising how they can outcompete the host species for nest dominance, especially in a species like this. You can see the size difference in the eggs. The larger ones are 2 cowbird eggs there with 1 gnatcatcher egg. And then also you can see how the one nestling cowbird is taking up, and this is a young cowbird nestling, is taking up a large amount of space and without any other host species nestlings present. So here's a larger, on the bottom left, you'll see a photo of a larger cowbird nestling, and you can see that it's almost overflowing the nest. That's one individual. And then also gnatcatchers feeding some cowbird fledglings. So we observed the gnatcatchers tending the cowbird fledglings 2 to 6 weeks. In comparison to 9 other species, that 6 weeks is quite a long time for them to be tending a fledgling. You can imagine the amount of resources they expend to raise that bird. We did not see any cowbirds, any gnatcatcher nestlings successfully produced from parasitized nests. So the nest manipulations I did, were at 14 total nests, with 1 being successful at producing a gnatcatcher. 5 of the nests we had actually, it turned out that the management terminated the nest cycle, which means there was only eggs, cowbird eggs or cowbird nestlings present, so plucking those out ends the nest cycle. At 6 of the nests, I switched the cowbird eggs for non-viable ones, where gnatcatcher incubation continued, but none of those were successful. At 3 nests, there was a young cowbird chick present alongside gnatcatcher eggs. These all, as soon as the cowbird nestling was removed, I observed the adults starting to incubate the eggs again. All 3 of these nests had gnatcatcher nestlings, or the eggs hatched. 2 of them, they were subsequently depredated, but at 1 of the nests, that's the one nest that produced an actual gnatcatcher. As part of the adaptive management response, we were able to fund a cowbird trap, which was placed near the territories, gnatcatcher territories. It caught a total of 13 cowbirds in that time span. Probably most interesting was the juvenile cowbirds that we were catching starting June 25th, which indicate, these birds were successfully reared starting in about April, perhaps. Just some photos of the cowbirds captured at the trap. So, just conclusions and recommendations. We were fortunate to be monitoring these California gnatcatchers so we could form an adaptive management response mid-season, which was doing nest manipulations, more closely monitoring the nests, and being able to put out this cowbird trap. So although nest manipulations only resulted in one successful nest, I think that we were able to curtail further production of the cowbirds through removing the eggs, the chicks, and with this trapping. Some obvious recommendations: we should be probably planning to manage the cowbirds in 2025 to try to not replicate this low reproductive output that they had in 2024. And that would include areas of the Santa Ana River and Mill Creek. Of course, there's many areas outside of the scope of the study area that would have been affected by cowbirds, both upstream and downstream, so it's not at all limited to these 3 study areas. And the corresponding effort to locate and monitor and manage the nest to evaluate the cowbird effort, or the cowbird trapping effort, is important. And I'd like to try to get some radio telemetry on wild captured males so we can figure out where they're foraging in this particular area, because cowbird trapping can be effective in foraging areas in addition to the breeding areas. That's my little rundown on gnatcatchers in the wash. Any questions?
Hey, do you know why the gnatcat or the parasitism increased in 2024 as opposed to any other years?
Well, there's been some Sawa who's here. They've done cowbird trapping in the winters, and I haven't seen the 2023-2024 data yet, but winter 2022-2023, there was at least a doubling of the number of cowbirds caught, including incredible numbers of juveniles. So that could be part of it. Also, the cowbirds are attracted to species like gnatcatcher. They kind of fit their target species, which is they like smaller species. They like ones that breed, have an extended breeding period, like the ones here. They can nest from March to August, and the nests are relatively easy to find. And so that all kind of equates to cowbird being attracted to a species like that. And so it could be just that the population, you saw the growth, it could be that the population has finally reached a point where it was made sense for the cowbirds to sort of take residence and take advantage of the population and the numbers of nests that are here. But we're not sure.
Hi. Has there been any observed adaptations to fight against cowbird parasitism from the gnatcatcher? So, I've seen some bird species where they'll just identify the brood parasite and they'll just push the egg off the nest. But I don't know if that's the gnatcatcher. It seems they're kind of small, right?
I found one nest that was really interesting. It was actually it had a shape of a bush tit nest, which is long and elongate. And so, if you know different species, yellow warblers can cover cowbird eggs with another nest layer. And so I never got a chance to view that nest closely, and then I think it disappeared because they reused the material. But potentially that elongate nest was an effort for them to rebuild the nest on top of cowbird eggs. But other than that, I didn't see anything.
Do you know if there's any association between what species of plant, of shrub, they're nesting in compared to the predation or their parasitization?
Yeah, I think that, when I have difficulty finding nests in certain habitats like chamise mixed with bristlebush scrub, I think that the cowbird might have more troubles in those instances as well. And so I did have some of those territories in the more complex habitat produce gnatcatcher fledglings, even though I didn't know where the nest was located. Whereas the ones that are the nests that were easier to find, I feel like those were maybe parasitized more. So I think complexity of the habitat can deter the ability of the cowbird to find the nest. It might make it a little more difficult for them. All right, that's all the time I had. Thanks.
Okay, last but never least is Milan Mitrovic, who's going to give us an enthralling presentation, I have no doubt.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the chance to share a few words this afternoon. And a friend of mine once said, this style sounds a little bit like slam poetry, so I'm just going to tell everybody good luck, and we're going to see what happens. So with that, we're going to get into it. So to begin, I present this question. How do we effectively manage for the most sensitive natural resources when so much is unknown, there is more work than there is time, and there are greater financial needs than there is funding? So before we attempt to answer this question, let me set the stage. So imagine we're a few years into our work as managers, as conservation practitioners. Plans have been written and finalized. The preserve system that we manage is taking form. Baseline monitoring data has been collected. Interest earned from non-wasted endowments is starting to be calculated, and the real cost of implementation is beginning to materialize. Most importantly, the inherent complexity of the natural system we're here to protect and recover is starting to become realized. So to answer the presented question, I put the following list of action items together. These methods are time-tested and natural system approved. You got my word. Build a collaborative team. It's essential to build a collaborative and diverse team. Remember, we are better when we work together to find solutions than when we stay apart. Lean into what we know. We each bring unique personal experiences working in this field and have stories to share. Read the literature, both published articles and unpublished reports. You will gain perspective and be introduced to solutions from a different time and place. Pay attention. Walk the land. What you need to learn is not all in books or online. Come to listen to what the systems and species you are looking to recover have to say. They are wise well beyond our years and have much to share. Lean into our collective strengths. Ask the question, what are we good at? Not just you and me, but all of us as humans. The more we consider our strengths, the faster we can create the kind of impact that is needed. And fight to keep the solution simple while still allowing the impact to be profound. Time is our greatest asset. Let's not squander it on immaterial things or add complexity when it's not needed. The San Bernardino Valley Water Conservation District, where I work, together with our partners, is implementing the Upper Santa Ana River Wash Habitat Conservation Plan. Approved in 2020, we are in our 5th year of implementation, and I use 3 examples from our experience implementing this plan over the last few years to demonstrate the application of these ideas. The first example involves a small state and federally listed annual plant, Dodecahema leptoceras, the slenderhorn spineflower. It's a species rapidly disappearing from the region due to habitat loss. Most importantly to know, the species is rare and numerical abundance is concentrated. In the wash, there are only a handful of extant patches or colonies. One patch is the source of more than 75% of the observed plants in the last 3 years. Other well-known patches have blinked out and no longer are detected during annual surveys. With the go-ahead provided by the wildlife agencies, we took action. We formalized a monitoring program, read reports from the late 1990s and minutes from the species working group last organized 10 years ago. The spine flower is small, and we believe the principal reason it's not more widely distributed in the wash is because it is dispersal limited, and waiting for the rare overland flood to move seeds is just not an option. With the blessings from the wildlife agencies and permits in hand, we lean into one of our fundamental strengths as humans. We remembered we can move things. We do this all the time. Unfortunately, it mostly involves invasive species, but it can work with native species as well. I give you that assurance. Partnering with the California Botanic Garden, with guidance from our contractors, DUDEC and HRS, we collected in bulk seed for the first time ever last year, recognized the importance of connecting the plant with local pollinators. We completed bulking activities in the wash and successfully produced more than 280,000 seeds. After walking the wash and studying local conditions at extent patches, we became increasingly comfortable in identifying the macro conditions characterizing suitable habitat and initiated outplanting trials. Within 2 months, we saw recruitment at our trial sites. Within the first year, we had plants growing at all experimental plots. In fact, more plants were growing at our trial sites than across all wild patches in the wash. With no additional activity but moving seeds, we had more than double the capacity of the population. We recognize there is so much we don't know, and we are just at the beginning, but we're learning by doing. We started with existing knowledge, then quickly pushed the envelope to see what this small annual plant could teach us about how to help it best persist in a changing world. Example 2, the San Bernardino kangaroo rat. It's a state and federally listed species suffering from habitat loss and degradation across its range in Southern California. The species is found on the alluvial fan and requires open habitat for mobility. We have learned from our monitoring efforts the species appreciates sandy conditions and movement is hampered by the presence of invasive grasses. We know disturbance events open up habitat. On the coast and elsewhere, disturbance in upland environments invites the invasion and spread of exotic species. In the wash, I quickly learned things are different. In the wash, it's an upside-down world. Here, disturbance is the fundamental action that resets successional processes on the alluvial fan. Historically, disturbance was in the form of fluvial processes tied to storm events and flooding. In the absence of disturbance, static conditions invite invasion by non-native grasses and limits mobility and degrades the quality of habitat available to the San Bernardino kangaroo rat and other sensitive species. With regards to management, it's important for us to remember our strengths. The kangaroo rat can't get rid of grasses, but we can. As humans, we can disturb things, and we do this remarkably well. We can be aggressive and treat invasive grasses with herbicide. We can scrape the top few inches of the soil surface to remove seeds and thatch. We can carry and spread native sand to open up habitat and emulate the effects of fluvial processes. We can do this, and we are. The San Diego Zoo, Valley District, BLM, Robertson's Ready Mix, CDFW, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we're all working together to bring disturbance back to the wash in areas that have not seen flood conditions in more than 100 years. We can't make any more land, but we can manage the land we have better. We are doing what the species can't do and leaning into one of our strengths. As we take real strides in this assault on exotic grass in the wash, we believe the San Bernardino kangaroo rat will exploit our efforts. We expect to see real change as we increasingly get busy over the next several years and are excited to partner with the U.S. Geological Survey and other researchers to document the positive impact. The third example, the western spadefoot. It's not a covered species under the wash plan, but proposed for federal listing. A habitat generalist when foraging living in the uplands, the species is limited by the number of opportunities to breed in seasonal pools. When we think about how best to recover the species, we must consider our strengths and remember we can build things. The upper Santa Ana River Wash is a working landscape. We manipulate water flow here. We also build basins to enhance groundwater recharge, the principal mission of the Conservation District. When walking the land these last few years, even though the spadefoot's not a covered species, I thought about the basins and about spadefoot. Before joining the district, I helped implement an HCP on the coast. We worked hard to overcome the limiting breeding opportunities for the species in the coastal hills. Partnering with the Wildlife Conservation Board, state and county parks, and others, we built pools to hold rainwater long enough to provide reliable breeding opportunities. Our activity worked wonderfully well. It's been 5 years since construction was completed, and spadefoot routinely find the pools each year to breed. The pools we built on the coast were small, with the largest not more than 1/10 of an acre in size. In the upper Santa Ana River Wash, we've created dozens of basins covering tens of acres that temporarily hold water during the winter and spring for 30, 60, and sometimes more than 180 days. A number of these pools have been here for decades. Knowing the presence of seasonal breeding opportunities is a key limiting factor for the species, we went looking for spadefoot. We found them in our basins. Tadpoles were in the backwater conditions we created where the water is shallower, slower, and warmer, and there's a silty base the larvae seem to love. When we made these discoveries, we realized our groundwater recharge operations are compatible with the conservation of western spadefoot. For over 100 years, we've been sinking water in the wash, and for just as much time, countless generations of spadefoot have likely been finding and using our basins to breed. We're excited to partner with researchers to better understand the lift our activities have provided for the species in the San Bernardino Valley and what this means for conservation in Southern California. So the conclusion here. As land managers, we have a responsibility to advance our field while taking care of the natural resources we are entrusted to protect and recover. Again, to do this, in my experience, you need to build a collaborative team, celebrate the diversity of perspectives and experiences, recognize everyone has a role to play, everyone can contribute to finding a solution. Lean into what we know, get into the literature, read published articles from today, but also from yesteryear. Work to gain a different perspective. Do not shy away from agency reports. Fight to gain the generational perspective that is all too often lost when practicing conservation. Walk the land and listen. After spending real time with the land, you'll begin to hear the stories that are being told and learn that answers to our most important questions are there to be discovered. Lean into our strengths. Let's get real about what we can effectively do as managers. To do this, it's helpful to look at what effective tools we employ in our human systems. Remember, we can move, we can disturb, and we can build. Fight to keep it simple, but allow the results to be profound. The answer does not have to be complicated to be brilliant. And lastly, share your stories with others any chance you get. I realize in some ways we're just at the beginning, but I'm excited to see where our collective work takes us as we move forward and begin to have the kind of impact these natural systems deserve. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. That was sorry, this is weird. That was a great presentation. Something that stood out to me when you had this slide up that's titled, "We can reintroduce disturbance to the wash." I noticed that treating grass with herbicides was the second thing on the list. Was there a particular reason for that, and what would be the repercussions of using herbicide as one of the first things to combat these grasses? I would imagine that there's other methods that we could try before that point, and then what would happen, say, like, we have these dry seasons, treat with herbicide, treat with herbicide, treat with herbicide. Well, it's not affecting our watershed because we don't have any water right now, right? And then we have a wet season, and then we'll have a high concentration of that herbicide. Have you guys looked at that before providing that recommendation that we use herbicide in those areas?
Right, yeah, no, I appreciate the question. Herbicide can be a sensitive topic, as it should be. We should think about how we use it in our natural systems. We should think about how we use it principally in our agricultural systems and our urban landscapes. So we should always have consideration and how we think about herbicide. When you're looking at the kind of tools in terms of what you have as a land manager, it's an incredibly powerful tool when used and applied appropriately. So you have to do all the work in terms of thinking before you apply and use. In this case, we're proponents of a grass-specific herbicide, so it's largely going after the exotic grasses. We also go after broadleafs as well, but it's the exotic grasses that creates the most problems for the animals in terms of the wash, and also it's what provides flashy fuels in the wash when we think of it from a fuels management perspective. So going after grasses, herbicide can be very effective. So you want to think about what you use and how you apply it, where you apply it. So ones with short lives. In the case for us, we're using ones with a 3-day half-life. You have to think about how you might use it in terms of the water. There's obviously constraints in terms of where you use it and how you apply it. So you want to stay away from water in most cases and just use it in the upland systems where you can be effective with grasses at that time. rain years like this, we were just out in the field just a few days ago. We haven't seen a blade of green grass. We're now in January. So you change your tools as the season changes, as the years change. But it can be very effective, and it's not something that needs to be sustained. So this is a system out there where disturbance has been predominantly the principal active manager out there for a very long time. But some places that haven't been disturbed for a couple hundred years, you have European grasses that have moved in. You have nitrogen deposition creating soil conditions that favor grasses. It's creating a very difficult space for the species we're looking to protect and recover. And secondarily, it's creating a flashy fuel that creates a situation for neighboring communities that can be dangerous in the wrong conditions. So it's a tool. There's other tools as well that we're exploring, from scraping to sand addition, and emulate those kind of conditions you can produce after a fluvial event or a fluvial process. So great question. There's always sensitivity, as there should be, but we look to be safe in our application of the work and in the use of herbicides for not just the resources, but also the people that are doing the application themselves.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. And I guess a follow-up question to that would be what percentage of the time, I mean, not that you necessarily know offhand, but is herbicide your first go-to, or did it just happen to be like higher on the list? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you guys try to use other things before the herbicides? And then also, could I get the name of the herbicide so I can look into it further and educate myself? Please, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Envoy Plus is the one that we're using. Clithodium is the brand, is actually the chemical name. That's the principal agent. But you look at all opportunities for, is there grazing? Is there an opportunity to graze, and that's a way to target grasses? Are you able to use control burns, as been mentioned earlier? Are there mechanical means? Are you working on a small scale? Are you working at a larger scale? So there's a lot of things that you want to think about. You want to absolutely use all available tools when it's appropriate. So hopefully that gives a little more detail. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, hopefully everybody enjoys listening to Milan talk as much as I do. He always, I just love how Milan talks. He's my favorite. So we're taking a 15-minute break, and then we will be back. And hopefully you guys will, I found all of those talks to be great. I think one of the big takeaways that Secretary Crowfoot talked about was the and I heard a lot of ands in those presentations about how we can do lots of hard things and then do more hard things. So hopefully while you're talking to each other, you can find some ways to think about those ands. So enjoy your break, and we'll see you back in 15 minutes.